welcome to today's video, you guys, where I will be sharing with you the books I've read in February. Also, excuse my nasal voice, I've just been recovering from cold, so it's all crazy, but hopefully it won't interfere with the video. So let's get started. The first one is Heaven by Mieko Kawakami. So it's a coming of age story of two high school students, a girl and a boy. The boy, who's the main protagonist, he has a lazy eye, and the girl comes from a poor family. For these reasons, they're bullied by their classmates at school. Their friendship is sort of bonded on this basis. The entire story revolves around bullying, what it means to bully somebody, what it means to be bullied, and what is the courage required to face that every single day. It's written in a very straightforward manner. The author goes, here's what happens in the world, face it. There's really violent graphics of the abuse, which is just so hard to forget, so hard to read, because at every turn you're like, oh my god, please don't. And then that's exactly what happens. And it's so sad and so unfortunate that it's not a fiction. People actually go through this in their lives, and it's so much more common than what I thought it was, and that's privilege speaking. But I think that is exactly why this book is so important, because it shows the reality of school institutions, of family institutions, of the role of adults or the lack thereof in bullying, and what the bullied kids actually go through and how it affects their thinking and their behavior and the worldviews that they develop. It's very philosophical in nature, wherein characters are constantly thinking about morality and God, different realities we all live in, and the meaning we give to those realities. So it's so simple in terms of teenage pleasures and the way our minds operate when we are teenagers, but it's so intricate in terms of the complexity of adolescence, of just growing up and getting into the world, but then you're not able to do that in a safe space. And it's beautifully written because the friendship is so tender, it's so safe, it's like a cocoon, and then we are to see what happens with that sort of safe space that both of these people find within their friendship with each other. I am a huge fan of Kawakami. She's always challenging these institutions and these beliefs and the ways in which the world works, and that's personally what I tend to go towards. I loved this book. It's just one of those books that's gonna stay with you for a long time, and I think that's wonderful. The Diary of a Voyage by Emiyagi. So it's about a woman called Miss Shibata who lies that she's pregnant to her co-workers so that she can escape the menial tasks that are given to her every day at her workplace, like making coffee and picking up trash and all of that. Kind of starts off as a rebellion against the gender discrimination that occurs in the workplace and just life in general. She just chooses a really creative, wild way to stand up against it. So she sort of sees what a normal life would look like. So gets off the office early, she doesn't have to work the extra hours. Initially she just enjoys it so much, the freedom that comes with it and just the better treatment. But soon she starts feeling lonely. She constantly has to lie to all these people in her life. She has to keep up the lie, and then she also joins a community of other moms, but then she realizes she cannot relate to them. It's constantly sort of shifting between these two aspects of her life, being a single working woman and then being an expectant mom. And also there comes a point in the story where you don't even know if she's actually lying, which I think has to be my favorite part because the writing was just genius. However, it was kind of abstract, and it would have been nice if maybe I would relate to it. The thing is, I am neither a Japanese woman nor am I a mother, so I just don't relate to it. I don't understand the context and the nuance of it. I mean, it's an interesting read for sure because you don't normally come across concepts like these, and that was very refreshing. I think we all have to read such books every now and then just so that we're kept on our toes. The next one is The Berry Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. Firstly, I love his dystopian love stories
so much. Like, I am such a huge fan. I love his work. I love his voice. And especially, I love the kind of love stories he writes. They're just so heartbreaking, but then so satisfying. I love it.
But anyway, this particular one, it's sort of set in the 6th, 7th century England during the Anglo-Saxon settlement after the Britain-Saxon War. It's a fantasy literary fiction that starts with our main characters, an old couple, and they set out on a quest to find their son who has left them from a long time ago. But the interesting thing is they cannot remember why, and it's sort of like this amnesia that is present in the entire community where they live in, like all the villages. Nobody actually has any memories of the past. It's deeply rooted in realism, the reality of war, of violence, of revenge, of mistakes made in the past, of just being flawed humans. And as the couple keep progressing in this journey, they really want to understand why they are forgetting. They actually want to remember their past. They want to remember all the good times and the bad times. But the story is not just limited to this couple, what lies ahead when they actually remember the past, but it's also about what it would mean for this country to remember the past. Can peace really be an option when you remember everything? It's a page turner right from the beginning. I was hooked. I could not put down the book until I finished it. And oh my god, the ending. His endings are always the best. And this one, my heart broke into a million pieces. It was just one of those endings that I will never forget. Like, I will remember exactly how I felt when I was reading those words. Such a beautiful book, honestly. It's so fun, especially like the fantasy element of it, but it's also very serious, and I love that balance. I would just recommend it to everybody. I love it so much, and you should definitely read it. The Cat Who Saved Books by Sosuke Natsukawa. It was so fun to read. It was so lighthearted, while it was also talking about the seriousness of books and the changing scenario of the way people consume books and the value and the meaning that is being given to them. It starts with a high school boy who's just lost his grandfather. His grandfather had an old second-hand bookshop, and Natsuki is very fond of books. He spends a lot of time in that bookshop, and now that his grandfather's not there anymore, he copes by reading, and that's when we have this talking cat come in. It's called Tiger the Tabby, and I have to say it is probably my favorite character. So cool, so funny. Anyway, so this cat, it sort of saves books, and it comes in to ask Natsuki for help to save the books. And so they go into these 4 labyrinths, and they meet different people who are destroying books in different ways, and they save the books essentially. With each labyrinth, Natsuki discovers new things about himself. He understands himself better, and he learns how to be compassionate with others and how to connect with others, because he is, and the book says, hikikomori, which is just somebody who is always by themselves and they go within, and just somebody who doesn't connect with the societies. He learns these lessons with each labyrinth. There's just some aspects I did not enjoy as much. The classic cliche, the girl is taken and the guy has to go rescue her. I don't think that was needed. It was very unnecessary. Overall, it was a fresh read. Also, I love the translation by Luis Kawai. Of course, I didn't read the original text, but the way it's been translated, like, it's just such an easy read. And sometimes I see that when a text is originally translated from another language, it sort of can come off a little bit formal, but it was very conversational. So if you're in for like a light read, then this one's really good for that. Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. This one's all about creative living. She redefines what it means to be creative, to make it more accessible to everybody, and it's not just something that a chosen few can have for themselves and they're just so elite and stuff. Like, the entire book, she talks about how each of us have the ability to live creatively. Just by being humans by default, we are meant to live a creative life. You can do that in any number of ways. You don't have to like be an artist or be in the arts to be creative. I loved so many parts of it. I obviously cannot talk about the entire thing, but just gonna mention a few of them because they're just so good. And the first one is The Melancholic Artist. I have always been so depressed by this idea, and I was so scared that if I would live creatively and if I was a creative, then I would just end up like them. Like, that was actually one of my biggest fears at a point in my life. Like, I would just die young and I would just drink myself to death. But then the way she breaks down this myth is just amazing. So So she says that you can be like a very happy, a very fulfilled, delighted person, and you can still produce meaningful works. And if anything, if you're just brooding constantly and you're just making the worst possible decisions in your life to keep your creativity stimulated, then that's not going to end well in the long run. Exactly what I believe. Another thing that I really loved is the importance she gives hard work. She talks about how you can have bursts of inspiration every now and then, but at the end of the day, you have to put in the hard work. You have to do the laborious work to make the inspiration come to life. And it's so important because I think in today's world, hard work is so underrated, especially with viral moments and just the digital space in general. But it's so true. Like, if you don't work hard, then you're not going to be able to sustain anything. So that was another bit which was really good. And the best one, my favorite, has to be the martyr versus the trickster. And just for this one bit, I would want everybody in the world to read the book. I'm actually going to read you a little bit of it so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It describes like what a martyr is and what a trickster is. So martyr energy is dark, solemn, macho, hierarchical, fundamentalist, austere, unforgiving, and profoundly rigid. Trickster energy is light, sly, transgender, transgressive, animist, seditious, primal, and endlessly shape-shifting. And that just explains all of it so perfectly. And she says that for trickster, it's like, it's all just a game. If all of us thought of everything and approached everything in this manner, I would say we'd all just be so happy. Because when you approach it in this way, you know there are endless possibilities waiting for you, and there's just so much of freedom because nothing is at stake. Also, this other notion that you have to save people with your work, like, no, you're doing something because it's so fun. You freaking enjoy doing it, and that's why you're doing it. And you just throw it out into the world and you wait and see what happens, and then you do it again, which is so bomb. Like, I just love that. And every day ever since I've read it, I have just been like conditioning my brain to think in this way, like, it's all a game, it's all for fun. Let me just try it. What's there to lose? If I do lose something, I can just do it all over again and gain it back. You know what I mean? It's amazing. So anyway, it's a must read for everyone who wants to live with more creativity. I highly recommend. It's a beautiful book. And the last one is 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty publishes a book and I don't read it, that's not going to happen. So when I knew this was coming out, I was like, I have to read it. And I read it, and it's amazing. It's everything about love. If you're single, if you have a partner, if you're just meeting somebody and you want to figure out where it could go, if you've just broken up or you want to break up, or the universal kind of love, it's all in there. And it's such a needed book on real love, not the fairy tale kind that we've all grown up with and that we all fantasize to experience once in our lives, because it talks about real life problems when it comes to love, how to make a partnership last for a long time, the compromises that are needed, the sacrificing you need to do, how to pursue your purpose individually and also like support your partner pursue theirs at the same time, how to be a better partner, how to grow with someone. There's really nothing that is not there in the book, I think. But I do think that it would be more effective if you have a partner. That's what I felt, because it's also like a workbook, so you have these exercises that you can try out. For the larger chunk of it, it's really, if you're in a relationship and you have somebody, then I think you can get the most out of the book. But of course, you can still read it at any point in your journey. But reading this, I realized how much work is needed to sustain a relationship with someone at different stages in your life, because young love is different. There's really not much you need to worry about and think about, but as you get into the real world and you have your own priorities, and then you have to bring someone into your life and make it compatible with them, that is work. Like, that is real hard work. And that's when I was like, oh my god, no wonder like so many people are unhappy in their relationships. I think the beauty of this book is he shows that it doesn't have to be that way. Like, if you love a person, if you care for them, then you both can make the changes you need in order for the relationship to grow and for you to grow individually as well. So yeah, this can really help you in loving yourself and others in a healthy, sustainable way. And I just love how he ends the book with love for everything, love for the collective, the universal kind of love, because that is not talked about enough. Whenever we say love, a romantic partner comes into our head, but then he talks about how that is not the end goal. That's just a stepping stone for you to reach a place wherein you can have love for the entire world and everything within it. Love is the solution for everything. At least that is what I firmly believe in. And if we all just loved each other, we will be more supportive towards each other. We'll be able to understand each other better, and there'll just be less differences, less prejudices, less stereotypes, and the world will just be a lot more peaceful. And yeah, so it's really about like all the stages of love and all the aspects of love. Alright, you guys, so those were all the books I read this month. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you have any other recommendations of books, then please leave them down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.